All right, everybody, welcome back to TalkTickers. We are doing a deep dive, and we are talking about Verizon's Q3 2024 earnings.
Yeah.
I know earnings calls, not always the sexiest thing in the world, but we're going to spice it up.
Yeah, we're going to find some interesting things in here and try to relate it back to you, the listener.
Exactly.
And how this impacts your life.
So the first thing that jumped out to me was, flat revenue year over year,
right?
Which on the surface, you're just like, okay.
Yeah, doesn't sound great.
But they had a record-adjusted IBIDA of $12.5 billion.
Yeah, so that's a really positive thing because EBITDA, it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization.
Right.
And essentially, it's a measure of profitability from the company's core operations before we factor in all the kind of like capital structure stuff. So it's $12.5 billion. That's a huge number for Verizon.
Yeah, that's a really big number. Of course, when we're talking about this quarter, we can't, avoid the fact that there were a couple of pretty major hurricanes that impacted their business.
Helene and Milton,
Exactly.
Yeah, and Hans Vestberg, Verizon's CEO, he addressed that head on. He talked about the resilience of the network in the face of these weather events and really emphasized Verizon's commitment to helping those communities that were impacted by the storms.
Yeah, and I mean, that also really kind of highlights the importance of telecom.
Absolutely.
When these things happen.
Yeah, and I've personally experienced this. I was without power for a week after a hurricane a few years ago.
Yeah.
And my cell phone was my only lifeline.
Wow.
I mean, so
really,
it's just, it's really crucial.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's get into the wireless segment.
Okay.
They had some really impressive numbers. I mean, they more than doubled their postpaid phone net adds.
Right.
Year over year to like 239,000 people.
Yeah, that's a huge jump.
What's driving that?
So I think a few things are contributing to this. They've been making some strategic pricing changes.
Okay.
Which obviously is always, good for consumers.
Right.
And they've also simplified their plans with the My Plan offering, which gives customers more flexibility and, the ability to choose the features that they want.
Okay.
But I think another big factor here is fixed wireless access, or FWA.
So let's define that for the listeners.
Yeah, so FWA, it's essentially delivering high-speed internet service through Verizon's 5G network wirelessly. So it's an alternative to cable or fiber, especially in areas where those options are limited.
Okay.
And it's been a huge growth driver for Verizon.
Yeah, they actually smashed their subscriber goal for FWA.
Yeah, they did.
Like way ahead of time.
Yeah, they wanted to hit 4 to 5 million by the end of 2025, and they already have almost 4.2 million.
Yeah, so they're well on their way.
Yeah, they're crushing it.
Yeah.
And consumers are really responding to this. I mean, it's fast, it's convenient, and it's priced competitively with cable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially for people who don't have access to good, wired internet, or who maybe just don't want to deal with having another company come in and drill holes in their walls.
Yeah.
So let's not forget their Fios service as well.
Right.
How's that doing?
So Fios is their fiber optic service. It's doing well.
Okay.
It's steadily growing its subscriber base.
Okay.
And when you combine FWA and Fios, they have almost 12 million broadband subscribers.
Wow.
Which is up 16% year over year.
Okay.
So that's a really strong position to be in to compete with those cable companies.
Yeah, it seems like they're really building quite the empire.
Yeah, they're making a big push into broadband, and they're projecting some huge growth in FWA. They're aiming for 8 to 9 million subscribers by 2028. And they're also planning to significantly expand their fiber network, both through organic growth and through acquisitions like the Frontier Communications deal. So this is a really bold move by Verizon.
Yeah.
It signals a shift in their strategy and potentially a major shift in the telecom landscape.
Yeah, so they're really going all in on broadband.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not just dipping their toes in the water. They're diving head first.
Yeah, and it sounds like they have the financial strength to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, remember that record EBITDA we talked about?
Right.
That gives them the financial firepower to make these investments.
Right.
And really play the long game here.
So it's not just about phones and internet for them anymore, right?
Yes.
They're diversifying.
Yeah, they're branching out. They're making some strategic partnerships.
Like what?
Well, they're now the official wireless provider for all Madison Square Garden venues.
Wow.
Including that new Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yeah? That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a high-profile partnership.
Yeah. And it's not just about, the venues themselves. It's about the events that are held there, the concerts, the sporting events, all the people that are coming through those venues. So it's a great way for them to showcase their network and their services.
Okay. And they also did a deal with FIFA.
Yeah, that's right. They're partnering with FIFA for the 2026 Men's World Cup.
Yeah.
Another global event with a massive audience.
Yeah, so they're thinking big.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's get back down to the, brass tacks here.
Okay.
How are their financials really looking?
So in the first 9 months of 2024, they generated $14.5 billion in free cash flow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a healthy amount of cash.
And it sounds like they're using it wisely.
Yeah, they're investing in network upgrades.
Right.
They're paying dividends to shareholders.
Right. They just raised their dividend for the 18th year in a row.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is.
And they're also paying down debt.
Okay, so debt's a big topic for them, right?
Yeah, they took on a lot of debt.
To get that 5G spectrum.
To acquire spectrum for 5G. Yeah.
Right.
So managing that debt is crucial for their financial health.
Okay. And they did raise their capital expenditure guidance.
Yeah, they did. They raised it to $17.5 to $18.5 billion for 2025.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, they are. They're making big bets on the future.
And it'll be interesting to see if those bets pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay with us as we continue our deep dive into Verizon's performance and what it means for the future and how we connect with the world.
All right, see you after the break.
We'll be right back. #TTS, the deep dive episode 2024-1022, part 2 of 3.
So before the break, we were talking about Verizon going all in on broadband.
Yeah, they're really pushing this idea of an integrated connectivity experience.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, they want to create this seamless ecosystem, where all your devices and services work together.
Okay.
Your phone, your home internet, your entertainment, all connected.
So it's like everything just works. Exactly. It's about simplicity and convenience.
Makes sense.
And their My Home offering seems to be a key part of this.
So instead of having separate bills for everything, you just have one for My Home.
Right. It bundles everything together, internet, TV, maybe even home security and smart home features.
I think it'd be pretty appealing.
Yeah, it's about simplifying your life, managing everything in one place.
And on the network side, they're planning to cover something like 90 million households with FWA by 2028.
That's a huge number, almost 3/4 of the U.S.
Wow.
And their fiber network is expanding too, especially with the Frontier acquisition.
Right, that deal gives them access to a lot of new markets.
Exactly. They're projecting to hit over 30 million fiber passings by 2028.
So they're basically building a nationwide network.
Yeah, a network that can handle anything we throw at it, streaming 8K movies, smart cities, self-driving cars, you name it.
It sounds like they're trying to future-proof their network.
Absolutely, and they're making sure the quality doesn't suffer. They said Frontier's fiber network meets their FiOS standards.
Which are pretty high.
Exactly. So they're not just expanding for the sake of it. They're committed to delivering a top-notch experience.
It all ties back to their America's Best Network slogan.
Right. They're investing heavily in both the reach and the performance of their network.
Now let's talk about my plan for a minute. It seems like they're really pushing this idea of customization.
Yeah, they want to give customers more control, more personalization.
So no more one-size-fits-all plans.
Exactly. Customers can choose the features they want and ditch the ones they don't.
So you only pay for what you use.
Right. It's a win-win for both Verizon and the consumer.
Okay. But are these big bets actually paying off?
Well, they reported strong free cash flow, so that's a good sign.
But they also have a lot of debt, right?
Yeah, debt management is always a concern, but so far they seem to be managing it effectively.
They're walking a tightrope, but they have a safety net.
That's one way to put it.
Now, there was something else in the earnings call that caught my attention. They mentioned a separate event where they talked more about their broadband strategy.
Yeah, that analyst event.
Did anything interesting come out of that?
Oh, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. They unveiled some pretty ambitious plans.
Like what?
Well, remember how they blew past their FWA subscriber goal?
Yeah.
Well, they're aiming to double that to 8 to 9 million by 2028.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is. But they're banking on a few things, the continued expansion of their 5G network, and they're targeting a new market apartment and office buildings.
That makes sense. Those areas can be tough for traditional cable.
Exactly. They're planning to launch a new millimeter wave solution specifically for those high-density environments.
But doesn't millimeter wave have trouble penetrating walls?
It does, but they're using existing infrastructure, combining fiber and millimeter wave to deliver ultra-fast internet without having to rip and replace cables.
So they're finding ways to overcome the limitations.
Right. It's all part of their mobility-first strategy.
And it sounds like it's working. They highlighted their high customer satisfaction scores for FWA.
Yeah, people seem to be happy with the service.
And they're not just relying on organic growth. They also did that tower deal with Vertical Bridge.
Right. That'll help them expand their network while keeping costs down.
So they're covering all their bases.
Yeah, they're pulling out all the stops.
Now, what about fiber? What's their plan for Fios?
They're committed to expanding Fios in their existing footprint. They want to give more customers access to their industry-leading product.
Which it is. Fios has a great reputation.
Yeah, it's known for its speed and reliability.
So how much are they planning to expand?
They're aiming for up to 650,000 Fios passings annually.
Wow.
And that's just in their existing markets.
Right. We haven't even talked about the Frontier acquisition.
Exactly. Once that deal closes, they expect Frontier to add 9 to 10 million fiber passings.
It's huge.
And then together, they'll be building out fiber to up to 1 million or more passings annually.
So they're going all in on fiber, too.
Yeah, they're building a nationwide fiber network.
It's like they're laying the groundwork for a future where everyone has access to lightning-fast internet.
That's the goal. And they're also exploring new possibilities with their fiber network, like edge computing and their Verizon cloud platform.
Edge computing, that sounds interesting.
It's all about bringing the power of the cloud closer to the user.
So it's like a more responsive internet experience.
Exactly. Lower latency, better performance for things like streaming, gaming, even virtual reality.
It sounds like they're not just building a network, they're building a platform for the future.
Yeah, they're shaping the future of how we interact with the digital world.
But let's not forget about the human element. What are they doing to improve the customer experience?
They're emphasizing choice and flexibility, giving customers more control over their plans.
Okay.
And they're committed to providing high-quality service and support.
They even mentioned creating a white glove experience for their fiber customers.
Yeah, that sounds pretty impressive.
It does. It sounds like they're trying to elevate the customer experience.
They're moving away from that old transactional approach and becoming more customer-centric.
That's a good thing because let's be honest, customer service in the telecom industry hasn't always been great.
Yeah, but it seems like Verizon is trying to change that.
And it's not just about support. They're also investing in content and entertainment.
Right. Remember My Home. It's not just about bundling services. It's about creating a complete entertainment ecosystem.
So you get everything from one place.
Exactly. Internet, TV, streaming services.
And they're leveraging their partnerships to make it even better.
Yeah, like that deal with Madison Square Garden.
There's the official wireless provider for all their venues.
Right, including that new Sphere in Vegas. It's a great way to showcase their network and their services.
And they also have the FIFA partnership.
Right, they'll be at the 2026 Men's World Cup.
So they're getting their name out there.
Absolutely.
So they're building their network, expanding their services, partnering with big names, and prioritizing the customer experience.
It's a comprehensive approach.
But are there any potential pitfalls?
Well, debt management is always a concern.
Right, those big investments come with a price tag.
Exactly, and the telecom market is very competitive.
They've got some tough competition.
Yeah, they can't afford to get complacent.
And let's not forget about government regulations.
Right, the telecom industry is heavily regulated.
So there are a lot of challenges they need to navigate.
It's a complex landscape.
But it sounds like they have a solid plan.
Yeah, they're making some bold moves.
And we'll be watching to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely, this is just the beginning. Hashtag TTS, the Deep Dive episode 2024-10-22, part 3 of 3.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Verizon, their performance, their plans.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, let's zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
What does all this mean for the average person?
Right. How does this impact you, the listener?
Exactly.
Well, if Verizon's vision comes to fruition, we're looking at a future where everyone has access to fast, reliable internet, no matter where they live.
Like it's just a utility.
Exactly, like electricity or running water.
That would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it would remove a lot of barriers, for healthcare economic opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful idea.
It is.
But is it realistic?
Well, it's definitely ambitious, but Verizon is putting a lot of resources behind it.
Right.
Billions of dollars.
Yeah. And they're not the only ones, right?
No, the whole telecom industry is changing rapidly.
Yeah, everyone's trying to figure out what the future looks like.
Right, and that competition is ultimately good for consumers.
Yeah, it drives innovation and hopefully lower prices.
Exactly.
But technology is not always a good thing, right?
Right. There are potential downsides, too.
Like what?
Well, data privacy is a big one, and online security.
Right.
And the spread of misinformation.
Yeah. We've seen how those things can be problems.
Yeah, and there's also the potential impact on jobs.
Right, as automation and AI become more prevalent.
Exactly. Some jobs may become obsolete.
That's a tough issue to grapple with.
It is.
So, technology is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it can be used for good or for bad.
And it's up to us to make sure it's used for good.
Absolutely. We need to be thoughtful about how we develop and use technology.
Well said.
So I guess the takeaway here is that the future is uncertain, but it's exciting.
It is.
And it's up to us to shape it.
Exactly.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those brains buzzing.
That's what we're all about here at TalkTickers.
Yeah, we want to help you understand the forces that are shaping the world.
And make informed decisions.
Right, because the future is not something that happens to us.
It's something we create.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Verizon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And we'll be back soon with more insights and analysis.
Until then, stay connected.
And keep those tickers talking.